Good. Currently, this is what we have for our particular page, and we say it is stateless widget. Today, we are going to look at another version. The other version that we are going to be this is stateless, right? We are going to look at stateful widget. So let's create another file. Let's call it um d home. So let's say dynamic home dot that. So just like it's going to be like stateful, right? It's going to be dynamic home screen. Basically, I'm calling it dynamic home dot that. So with that, for dynamic, for naming the classes, for naming the this, let me rename this. We have to rename this so that we name the file is dynamic underscore home. So you have to do the separation of files with underscore, right? Okay, dynamic underscore home. So what I'm going to do, is going to do stfl, stfl for stateful. So this is what's going to show up. If this thing show up, then you have to, let me call it home 2. Let's call it second home screen, right? So I'm calling it second home screen. And of course, this thing is not, so I need to press on this, click on import, and it's going to import this from Flutter, and then it's going to be stateful widgets now, right? So you go down here, instead of container, we clean it because we want a page, so we have to call scaffold. So scaffold is the one that's now look at how the structure of a stateful widget. There are two classes. Every stateful widget comes with two. So this is class carrying the same thing, right? This one is one, and this is the other one, right? They all come together. They need to work together as a class. There are some things that go inside this first part, and there are some things the rest of the thing go here. This one is going to where you actually focus on. You see that for the first one here, we have the constructor inside this one. The constructor is inside this one. And for this one, this is where we keep most of the stuff, the build, the other functions that we need to write, they go into the second one. But look at the stateful widget. Look at the stateful widget, the stateless widget. You just have one class and that's it. That's it. Then we do everything inside stateless widget. But stateful has to do a lot of things behind the scenes. So you need two classes. This class is extending from stateful widget, and then this one is also going to be referring to this one. So this one comes in pair, right? So what you do is that when you clean it, you do STFL, you select the stateful one, it comes here. So we call it second home screen, right? Then you go, then you have to click on this, and now you click on the lamp. The lamp will now say import this, and it's done. Now I'm going to the container, changing it to scaffold, because scaffold now means that we want to talk about a page now. So everything that we learn still happens here. Okay, so now let's open the scaffold, the page, right? Okay, so this is how you can do this. Another way you can also do that is that you go back to the home screen, right? Currently, the home screen is stateless widgets. So what you do is that you click on the name of the whole screen or the whole class. You click on this button here, right? Then you come to convert to stateful widget. You are converting it to stateful widget. So I'm creating that. You see, it does that for us. It changes everything for us. Go to stateful widget and everything is now back inside. So you can go, if you are starting from fresh, you have to decide whether the page you are creating is going to be stateful widget or stateless widget. If it is stateful, you go ahead. If you have a stateless that you want to change back, you need to go. So I can click on this and convert to stateless. It will do that back to stateless. You can click on it back, change it to stateful widget. So we are going to keep the stateful widget. So we don't need to start everything from scratch. That's how VS Code also assists you as a program. But then you can start from scratch and do whatever we did here. So this is how, just to illustrate how to create a stateful video. I'm going to use the one we had so far. So I'm going to click on capital R again, right? Or to reload. You see, we still have the same page. You see, have the same page. because we just converted the class. Now, but this class is now going to be dynamic. Now, this was something you need to keep in mind. Now, what is happening here is that the build inside the build, we are putting a variable here, and this is a variable. We are now using states what um class, right? The constructor is here, and then the properties are there. Then the methods are inside this class. So now let's go. If you go down, we need the app bar and everything that we find last time. They are all there, right? But we are focused on a change. Now, to make a change, right? When you make a change, you want that change to reflect. Let me use this opportunity to talk about build function. The build function. The build function is there to listen to any change in the is the one that actually build the pages here. Is the one that actually build the pages here, right? But then it's called build because behind the scene, this particular build doesn't build the entire class. What happens is that it's just focusing on some stuff. It listens to some of the change indicators. It listens to some of the change indicators. And when that change indicator calls it or happens, it's now rebuild the scaffold to the updated one. It's build the scaffold to the updated one. That's all it does, right? This particular build function listens to change indicators, and when the change indicators have done made their effect, then the scaffold is rebuilt in a way. So the build function rebuild that for us, rebuild from scratch after when a change indicator has given a command. So change indicators are used in stateful widgets, not stateless widgets. We can see stateful widgets, you can see change indicators. All right. And I say change indicators are indicated by there are various one, river, pulse, set state, and all that. But then the one we are going to use, the basic one, is going to be the set state. Now the set state is you go to the function, right? Wherever you want a change to occur, right? The change is going to occur in this variable, right? Whenever we press, you're going to have count plus or equal to 1, right? That's where the change happens. When it does, right, we need the whole build function to rebuild again, meaning the whole page to build again, the page to build again, and update it with 1. The whole page to build again, update it with 2. The whole page to build again to update it with 3 when you are pressing this button, right? So that change is actually happening, but then it's not rebuilding because there's no change indicator. But now that we have stateful widgets now, we can now call any change. The basic one is the set state. Set state change indicator. That's a name I am giving it. Change indicator. We'll later learn about the actual name. We call them state management. But right now, let's say that they are change indicators, right? Okay. So now the set state. So you can see set state here, right? You can select it. Then this is what it will bring for you. This is how the set state looks like. And it has its own curly bracket open down for you. And inside here, you can copy this and paste it inside. Let me copy this and paste it inside. So all the changes are going to happen. So the set state is an change indicator that tells the build function to rebuild every time, right? But then we are saying that when you rebuild, right, there's going to be this is what's going to happen. There's going to be this count updated. When it's updated, rebuild the function, rebuild the method so that the page is updated for us, right? The count variable here is now 0, right? When you send it to 1, it should be able to update so that you can see it on the center text chart count here, right? You can see it over there. So that's what's supposed to happen. Let's run this now. Let's do hot reload and press it. I'm pressing it. You see, it's not happening. It's not happening. So let me use the opportunity to explain something. But let's look at the print function. Let me look for the print function. The print function is saying, yeah, both button press 1 number of times. I need to look for another one. The next one. N number of times. That's just 1. not seeing the remaining one. You see one. All right, let me press it again. Um, button pressed one number of times, right? But it's not showing on the UI. It is updating inside here, but it's not showing on the UI. So now, what is the problem? What is the effect? What is going on? All right. Um, the reason why it's updating over here is because we this particular build function rebuilds every single time, right? Whenever the change indicator happens, this build function is build. When it builds again, it starts again with zero. It starts again with zero, right? In the next build, whenever the change indicator has happened, we press on this one, there's a change indicator calling. This build function will build again. We'll build this whole return scaffold thing, all these up and things to build them, right, with the new number of count. But then when it is that build function is starting, it actually starts from here. So as upon every start, it's going to be starting from zero again. And that's the zero that we'll continue seeing there. It's not continue seeing that because we are now aware that this one will rebuild every time. Whenever it rebuilds every time, it's going to be working with the zero, initializing everything to zero. Every time it's going to be starting with zero. So the safest one, if you want to move the thing, is to move this particular one outside. You need to move it. Let me cut it, and I will need to move it outside of the this thing, and on top of it before the method, right? We are going to put it here. You see, it's now outside the build function, and it's just inside the this thing before the method. So inside here, we can keep our variables here, variables and declarations here. So this is where we can keep them. Remember, it's part of the second class, not the first class of the stateful widget. Stateful widget comes with two classes. We're talking about the second one. Everything happens in the second one for stateful widget. If you keep this in the build function, what's going to happen whenever there's a new build, it's going to be doing that. So let's now refresh. So now refresh now. Right, so I'm going to the button now. I press 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You see that the effect is now happening because the count is no more inside the build. So that whenever we do a new build, right, it doesn't start from zero, but the count is outside of the build. So that anytime there is a build, right, this guy is not restarted or it's not reinitialized, it's kept constant. Now, whatever is change indicator is calling. So this is the change indicator, right? Change indicator is saying that when you press the button on press of this button, right, what happens is that we need to update the count by 1 unit, and then we just print it basically. So when you count by 1 unit, the set state saying that after making this thing, after you do this, then you can set it. You don't necessarily need to keep it inside, right? You don't necessarily need to keep it inside this. You can decide to do it like this, right? I can close this gap. I'm trying to close the gap, right? I'm just calling set state. But before that, I'm doing count equals to count plus 1. See, so I'm going to let me refresh this or to reload this. So let me press this button. It's starting from zero again, right? We are hot reloaded, meaning I'm clearing everything. That's what hot reload does. I'm pressing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So the set state like this is just like it's a change indicator. So this thing will happen, right? And a change indicator will tell the build function, hey, build function, rebuild. That's what's happening at this point, right? And the print will do its own normal print. That's what's happening. But the set state is going to be like, but without it, that change is not going to happen. So if I do this thing, right? If I do this thing, let me do R or hot reload. So I'm now pressing. You see, I'm pressing it is not showing. I'm pressing it is not showing because yes, this thing is happening, but then you are not telling us to you are not telling us to update it. You are not telling us to set it's you are not putting a set indicator there. So we need to put a change indicator there, which is set state, right? So that after it, then we when we press it now, the number is changing. But then keep in mind that it's best way to keep everything inside the curly bracket. Anything that's changing, that will listen to that will mean the change. That will actually change before you rebuild, right? Anything that will happen before you do the rebuild, put it inside the set state. These are the best approach, right? One, this is the better approach than the previous one, right? So we know that set state is just a change indicator of the stateful widget. That's what we are doing. So it calls the build every time, and that's why we need it. So if I do instead of doing count, so you could have done count plus or equal to 1. It's the same as this one. So I'm going to comment this one out. This one is the same as this, right? Count plus or equal to 1, or that's just 1. Then you can do count plus is the same thing. This guy is also the same thing. So we are increasing by unit. Whenever you are increasing by unit, you do count plus by unit. That's all happened, right? So let's test this. I'm hot reloading. I'm hot reloading everything. Hot restarting actually. 1, 2, 3. You see it's changing 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 and things. So yeah, that's how to use a stateful widget. And you see stateful widget. Okay, so what we are going to do is that if you do this in the stateless widget, if you use a stateless widget, you cannot have access to set state. Let me just quickly do that. Let me convert this to so click on this, move home screen to file. Stateful widget. I want to convert this. Move home screen to file. No, maybe because I've added some changes, that is not happening again, or because I use set state and I made all this blah blah blah. Let me remove the set state and see. So still indicator doesn't happen inside. So let me press on this. Convert to stateless widget. You see, first it didn't allow me because I was having a change indicator. And the change indicator can only happen when you are doing stateful widget. So if I click on stateless widget and I press on this class or this thing inherit from is marked as immutable. So blah 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 and all that. Let me go to the bottom where the issue is stateless widget. So let me see the issue. Can define a constructor for a class with non-final fields. So yeah, non-final fields, right? We are talking about this guy. So that one is a concept that we'll talk about later, right? But basically what they are saying is that this one should have been final going. So we are still putting it outside, but it needs to be final for stateless widget because stateless widget doesn't change. So you need to be final. We talk about this when we're learning final and constant. So that's what we're basically doing. And I'm having the same thing. Can be used counts can be used as a setter because it's final. So basically those things, if you want to see changes, right, it cannot happen. So it cannot happen with stateful widgets. That's the issue. So we're having a lot of issues. So but unless you want to have a read-only page, right, don't use this. So I'm going back to my stateful widget. I'm coming back to my stateful widget. I'm running it. So you as a developer, you make a decision on what you are doing. You made a decision. Oh, I'm going back. I'm really go back fully. So let me do hot reload. And if my hot reload and now at 0, press, everything comes like that. So yeah. So now we know about the set indicators and everything. So let's see how it goes in your next. So show me a simple video of you making the changes and things are happening. Yeah, understanding is very important. See you in another session.